Let's get on with it, shall we?
Are you done, Mr. Drone?
He might be. I think he just fell out of the sky. Like he just stopped.
Is that him?
Could be. Hi everybody, this is Dylan Goldby.
Hey guys, Roy here from Roy Cruz Photo.
We are out at a place called Dodam Sambong, or the Three Peaks of Dodam, in Danyang in South Korea. And it's a place we've been wanting to come for quite a while.
Yeah.
Actually, we did come. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, we came here around last year, exactly a year ago. The shoot was kind of a bust.
This is what we were hoping for.
This, on the other hand, is not a bust. It's the opposite, exact opposite of a bust. It's a beautiful, beautiful day today, and we're really happy with the conditions we have, and it's absolutely epic, absolutely gorgeous. What are we going to talk about today?
So we're going to talk about, this is a pretty well-known location. This is sort of like your, like the Eiffel Tower or the Palace in Seoul or something like that. This is one of those sort of, there's only one thing here, and everybody comes to photograph it. So we want to talk a little bit about how you can explore that a little more, how you can make the most of a simple scene and try and get as much, I guess, different work out of it as possible. Does that sound like what you're hoping to talk about?
Sounds exactly right. So we came up with some goals for this particular shoot. We've decided to narrow it down to try to make 10 good and unique images from this one location. I mean, just this morning, there were a bunch of photographers who pretty much lined up here. They took their shots of that and then left. And Dylan and I were, of course, left exploring other compositions. So I guess the point and what we want you to get out of this is really how to maximize, a single location and do more than the trophy shot.
Right, and especially of a scene that's been photographed so often. I mean, there were 10, maybe 12 people here this morning. People have been coming in and out all morning, just taking that same shot and then leaving again. And so it gets shot to death. It's on Instagram, it's on Facebook, it's everywhere you look, but we're trying to get something a little bit unique out of it.
Exactly. And that's kind of the goal. You don't need to make another postcard image. It's nice to have.
And we shot it, sure.
And we shot it for sure. You get that hero image, but you put your own twist on it. You add, you add your own spin and hopefully make a unique image. So let's talk about what we're shooting with today. We're shooting with very different kits, Dylan and I.
Yeah.
And what are you shooting with today?
So I've actually got one of them in my pocket right here. I've got my X100V, which has been great to just be able to shoot while we've been walking along snowy paths and things like that. Get a few quick, almost snapshot style images.
Yep.
And in my bag I have the GFX 50R with the 45-100 f4, which gives me a lot of variety without having to change lenses while the snow is falling.
Right. So medium format kit and a
medium format kit.
Nice run and gun kit.
Yeah.
So what I have, I'm shooting with the Fujifilm X-T4, the 16mm f2.8, the XF 27mm f2.8, the 50 f2, and a manual lens that you may have seen in one of my previous videos, the Asahi Pentax 135 millimeter M42 lens. So I'm more of a run and gun. I've got a run and gun kit, very light. I'm shooting on a small tripod, and that's my kit.
Yeah. And I also we're actually filming on it right now, I have my big Manfrotto tripod with me to be able to support the GFX. Now, it's fine at this time to shoot handheld, especially with the 45-100mm being a stabilized lens, but this morning when we were doing shutters of, a second or 2 seconds or something like that, I did need to have the tripod just to make sure that I could, get sharp images with the GFX as well.
All right, so as Dylan and I like to do, we like to split our videos between both channels and take a slightly different angle and tackle a slightly different topic.
Yeah, and so from here, basically, we're going to go into some tips from my perspective, like what I shot, and then some tips from what Roy shot, and we'll try and give you sort of as many actionable little bits and pieces that we've come up with as we were shooting this scene this morning.
Yeah. So check out the videos on both channels, and we'll see you in a bit.
We'll see you in a little.
All right, so what I'm going to focus on for my video is 5 tips on how to get different, unique shots at one location and to maximize your time there. So tip number 1, Use horizontal and vertical compositions, and also use your various aspect ratios. Sometimes 16:9 will work better. Sometimes that wider crop makes the scene look really good. I know Dylan really likes to use that wide crop on the GFX, and it changes a whole scene sometimes. Tip number 2, focal lengths. Of course, you want to shoot wide, you want to shoot medium and tight. The hero shot here usually is just the typical landscape, wide landscape shot. But don't forget to get those details. At each location you go to, make sure that you are considering wide, medium, and tight compositions to make your story more interesting and to give you a wider variety of images. Tip number 3, use foreground elements to add interest to your photo. Particularly in this scene, we've got some nice grass, we've got some snow-covered branches, and all those things will, help you. They're easy to use as a foreground to lead the eyes into the scene, to add a little bit of depth to the composition, and look for foreground elements to help you achieve that variety. Tip number 4, come back at different times and dates. If you have the ability, coming back at a different time of day, in different weather conditions, of course, will help you get a variety of images from the same scene. So like yesterday, Dylan and I, we had some blue ice right here on the lake, and this morning all the snow fell, and it's a totally different look. So definitely, if you have the ability to come back multiple times to a spot, definitely do that. Tip number 5, use negative space and use a minimalist composition. So in this particular scene, that is very easy to do because you have all this beautiful snow. You can have some very painterly, very abstract sort of composition by using a lot of that negative space. So that's about it. I'm gonna go and shoot because it's looking gorgeous right now, and I'll see you back at the studio to go through the 10 images that I've chosen. All right, so we are back in the studio where it's nice and warm, and I have chosen my 10 photos from the mission, and I've also edited them. So we're going to go onto the computer and take a look at them in Lightroom. All right, so here we are in Lightroom, and we are currently looking at the overview of the 10 images that I've chosen for this mission, for this video. And just in case you missed it in the intro, we actually went back to the spot 2 times. One was in the afternoon of day 1 before the snowfall, and then we went back the next morning during the snow day. So we got a variety of weather conditions to work with. And as you can see in this overview, I have chosen a variety of orientations, horizontal and vertical, as well as cropping and aspect ratios. Now, of course, there are other photos that I really like from the set, and some duplicate compositions from different times and different weather conditions. But this set that you can see on the screen, I have based on the widest range of compositions and angles. So let's get on to the photos. Here is image number 1. So this was one of the first images that I took when we arrived. It seemed pretty natural to start with a wide landscape to establish the location. And for this particular scene, a lot of photographers seem to prefer sunrise at this spot. And this particular image, of course, was taken closer to sunset. So that means instead of the sun coming up over the mountains back here, backlighting the peaks, it was actually being lit from the front side, which gave a whole new perspective, and it brought out different details and textures of the rocks. And other elements I like from this shot are the reflections on the ice and the use of the boat as a foreground element. So this is shot number 1. For shot number 2, I chose a portrait or vertical orientation, and that allowed me to show more of the grass in the foreground. I really like the the layers here from the foreground of the grass to the boat to the peaks, and then the sky and the mountains in the background. And the frozen blue river, as well as the cracks in it, I think it brings everything together and leads the eyes around the frame. One of the peaks, of course, has been cropped out of the image, but for me, I think that makes the composition a little tighter, a little more and a little more cohesive, keeping your focus on the elements that I want you to focus on. So that is image number 2. And the third image is one of my personal favorites. This was taken from a spot on a nearby cliff. And as you can see, this gives an overlapping view of the 3 peaks, which I think is a cool angle that you don't really see as much. And the high angle also really shows the texture of the lines and the cracks in the rocks here, as well as the curve of the river in the background. And I chose to include a little bit of foreground here in the form of the branches to sort of break the monotony from the blue ice there. All right, so now we move on to the next images from the next morning sunrise. The next few images will be from the next morning, and the whole river was then blanketed in white snow. And this really illustrates what I mentioned in tip number 4 about the value of coming back to a spot at different times and different weather conditions to add variety to your images. All right, so this image is quite a long panorama, and while it may be difficult to view properly on typical social media and website formats, I think this choice of crop really focuses your eyes, and it gives you a sense of the expansiveness of the landscape. And I think it would be pretty cool to print this image large. There are definitely enough megapixels since it is a multi-shot panorama. See here, the morning mist, of course, offers just enough separation to make the peaks really stand out from the background. And also, I love the subtle colors and textures of the sky. I didn't go too crazy with the post-processing, bring out a lot of saturation, a lot of vibrance in the sky. I kept it pretty low-key, pretty pastel, and I think that contributes to the overall mood of the image. And actually, there is another shot that I'll show here on the screen, and this was another shot around this time, and it was the same yellow boat in the foreground from the previous shot. And it was a toss-up actually for this 4th slot, and I ended up choosing the panorama because I like how it shows more of the mountains in the background, and I also have a very similar boat image coming up in this set. So yeah, variety definitely took precedence in this particular choice. All right, so let's move on to image number 5. For this image, I used the longest lens in my bag, the Asahi Pentax 135mm M42 manual lens. This gives about a 200 millimeter field of view on the crop sensor of the Fuji X-T4. For this image, I really wanted to focus on the pagoda, as well as the surrounding textures from the mountain there. You can really see the snow and the rocks. And I went with a vertical orientation to show more of the mountainside in the far distance there. I really like the sense of depth provided by the mist, and also from my experience with editorial photography, images like this are great for supporting the story and accommodating text, as well as adding interest to the layout. So that is image number 5. All right, image number 6, we've got a square crop, and I actually chose to crop this image square for a reason. Not only does it look good on Instagram and social media, but I also, on the right side, originally you could see the farmland. You could actually see the farmland on the right side of the frame. So I thought it was quite busy, and I cropped it out. And now I think this crop is much simpler and more focused, showing again that curve of the river in the background, which I really like, as well as some shallow depth of field foreground in the form of the tree branches, the snow-covered tree branches here. And there was also, if you look closely here on the pagoda here, there is some beautiful diffused sunlight coming from the sunrise on the right side of the camera, on camera right, and it's just adding that nice slight wash of light on the rocks in the pagoda there. So this is another one of my favorite images, again from that high vantage point. All right, and let's see here. Going on to the next image. So this, as you can see, you don't really have the peaks in this image, and sometimes you just have to look away from the main subject to find other interesting aspects of a location. This was actually a view of the mountains and highway behind the peaks, and I really like how the snowy branches framing the highway and the mountains in the distance here. And the diffused sun up here, it makes for a really surreal, painterly sort of vibe. It definitely is not a hero shot relative to the peaks, but it can definitely serve as a supporting image for the overall story, which is also important. All right, and speaking of painterly, we move on to the next three images, which will definitely bring more of that. So later in the morning, the snow really started to come down, and that gave us another type of weather condition to work with, and a whole new way of looking at the scene. So that really worked in our favor. So here is image number 8. Again, we went back down to the front view of the peaks, and in this composition, I once again used the yellow boat as a foreground. So the falling snow there, you can see here, it provided even more separation between the peaks and the background, and painted a whole different image from the one taken just an hour previously. And the overall feeling I get from this image is very painterly and very minimalistic, and really capitalizing the use of the white, the negative space here. It's a cool painterly style image. All right, and image number 9. Here's another take on the painterly scene. This time it's in vertical orientation, and it uses the snowy grass here as a foreground, and the white snow in the frame really gives a feel of being a painter's canvas. And again, the composition is fairly minimal, and letting the elements breathe. And now for the last image for the set, I once again looked away from the peaks, away from the main subject, and instead pointed my camera to the cliffs off to the side. And this is actually the high vantage point from where the images 5 to 7 were shot. We were standing in this, well, actually we were standing up here on the cliff above the pagoda. And that was our previous vantage point, and it's now the subject of this photo. And at this point, the snow was coming down really hard, and the mountains in the background pretty much had disappeared, and you can still faintly see them faintly through the snow, which I think adds a little bit of interest to the photo. And this is another minimalist style of composition, and it takes advantage of a lot of negative space. And I love the texture of the falling snow here, and of course the falling snow against the rocky cliff, and the Korean pagoda is the icing on the cake. So let's go back to an overview of the images once again. These are my 10 shots from Dodam Sambong. Alright, so that's about it for my 10 photos from Dodam Sambong, as well as my thoughts on how to maximize the scene. Hope you guys found this video interesting and maybe even helpful for the next time you go out and shoot. Let me know in the comments below if you have a favorite among the 10 that I showed you today. And also be sure to go to Dylan's channel and check out his 10 photos, as well as his take on our shoot out in Danyang, South Korea. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more, subscribe to the channel. Again, this has been Roy from Roy Cruz Photo. Thanks for watching, and take care.